Goeiemorgen, goeiemiddag, goeienaand. Whether it is morning, afternoon, or evening where you are, it's always a good time to watch some Planty YouTube. My name is Shanae, and in today's video we are going to be talking all about Anthuriums. As you would see from the title of the video, we are going to look at plants that I received about a year and a half ago and what their plants look like right now. And what I really want you guys to get out of it is looking at how I started as a plant collector last year, getting some pretty tiny seedlings, and what those plants look like today. They are big, beautiful, and flowering, and that gives me an opportunity to breed with these plants. So I'm really excited for you to see what my journey looked like, and I'm also excited for you to go and look at your own plants and see how far your plant's journey has been. So if that sounds interesting to you, let's continue with the Anthuriums. The first 6 plants that we are going to be looking at today is plants that I got back in March 2024. So at this point in time, I've had these plants for about a year and a half. The very first one that we are going to be looking at is the Warocqueanum. And over here, you should be able to see a picture of what the plant looked like when I initially got it. I got it as an import. So a local South African plant nursery went to Thailand on a buying trip. And they then created a Facebook group, and they took pictures of the plants that was for sale there, and they put it up on this Facebook group. And I then liked this plant. I always wanted it. At this point in time, it was not in my collection yet, so I put sold on it. So I essentially bought and paid for it. A week later, they returned from their buying trip, and they then shipped the plant locally to me. On this picture, you can probably see that the plant has a lot of leaves, but what you can't see is that the plant's root system is actually non-existent. What I do with all my imports, I immediately put it in water just to rehydrate. I unexpectedly at this point in time had to take a trip to Cape Town, and the plant was in water for a little bit longer than what I normally would. So when I came back from Cape Town about a week and a half later, the root system grew back so nicely, and I was able to put the plant in pot, which is my preferred substrate. This is what the plant looks like today. I moved house very recently, and during the move, this new leaf was not yet unfurled, but it did lose the tip of this leaf, so it looks a little bit odd. But imagine if this was on here, how beautiful this leaf would have looked. It also has another leaf on here, and this one looks quite shoddy, and this one was because of the recent move. But I like the fact that they are on opposite sides of the pot, so I can literally put that one to the wall, and this one I can look at every day. So I'm really happy with the growth that this plant has given me. It's quite an impressive one. It has quite a lot of roots. You won't be able to see it right now, and it also has a new leaf coming in. So I'm really excited to see what this plant is going to be looking like in just a couple of weeks. The second plant that we are going to be looking at is the Magnificum Verde, and here's what the plant looked like back in March 24. To be quite honest with you, this is not the plant that I received. So I actually received this plant a couple of months before this picture was taken, and I got it from a seller who is no longer in business. The seller was quite problematic in our plant community. They sold us plants that were grossly unhealthy. The plants didn't have good root systems. They packaged the plants very poorly, but it wasn't secured, so whenever the plants would arrive at your house, the plants would have quite a lot of damage to it. When you would ask for a refund or ask them to rectify the situation, they did not answer your calls, they didn't answer your texts. They just refused to engage with you after that point. This plant in particular didn't have a really good root system, and I literally had to reroot this plant. Luckily at the time, I used leca as my primary potting media for Anthuriums, as you can see in the picture. So the nice thing about using semi-hydro, in this case leca, is that it is a perfect root substrate. And the roots actually took some time to grow back on this plant. In March 24, I bought my first grow tent. I looked up a lot of YouTube videos on how to take over Anthuriums, and a lot of them said that you need high humidity, you need good light, you basically need a grow tent to grow them really, really well. And that's what I ended up getting. And I put this plant in there lo and behold, a week later, the plant started to do really well. I could see a lot of roots coming in. I could even see that the plant is working on a new leaf. And in this picture, you can see what that first new leaf that I got looked like. So I was really happy that this plant did quite well. And the plant continued to do very well in the grow tent. This is what the plant looks like at the moment. She has a new leaf and it is still very floppy. She hasn't hardened off at all, so I'm not going to touch it too much, but she has really grown quite a bit. This is actually not the original plant. This is one of the offsets of the original plant. The original plant I have in ambient, and it's not looking too great because of the whole move, but it is on the recovery. But I thought I'll show you this one, seeing that she does have a new leaf on the way, and it looks like it's going to be quite a big one. I can normally tell that a leaf is going to be bigger than the last one by two key indicators. Number one, you look at the leaf petiole. If it is thicker than the last leaf, then you're guaranteed that the leaf is going to be bigger. The other one, you normally look at the veining, and maybe I'll put a picture up, but you can see on this one, it has much more veining here on top of the ears compared to the last leaf. So I'm really expecting, it's already looking quite larger than the previous leaf. So I am really looking forward to see what this plant also does in the next couple of months. So looking at how this plant started, I'm really happy and satisfied with the growth that it has managed to do within the last year and a half. Next up is the Crystal Hope Cross Crystallinum. So this is what the plant looked like back then. This one I actually got as part of a seedling race. I think I got about 3 seedlings from this one, and I decided to do a little bit of an experiment to see which one would work in my conditions and the way I take care of plants essentially. So the first one I decided to put in just perlite. The second one I put in just pure moss, and the third one I decided to put it in lacquer, seeing that that was at the time my preferred substrate. And I've added a little bit of moss on top of it, seeing that the seedlings at the time came with moss. And my reasoning behind that is, as opposed to transplanting the plant and having some transplant shock after a while, why not try getting the roots already familiar with the moss that it was in, so with that layer of moss, and then it naturally then go into that lacquer layer. And that actually ended up being very successful, and that to this day is still my preferred way of growing seedlings. Here is what the plant looks like right now. So it's looking quite nice, and she is one of the hardest working plants in this house. So she currently, I don't know if you're able to see, but she's just finishing up some of the berries, and this is one of her first berry production, her first pollinations that was successful. And then she also has another inflow that I thought was successful, but after a month and a half it looks like it is fading, which is actually a shame because this plant I pollinated with the Warocqueanum and it would have actually been quite nice. There's a couple of bumps on this one, but I think it's not gonna make it. And then also have a very new inflow, and currently it's in the female stage, and I can see the stigmatic fluid quite vividly on this one. And she also has a new leaf on the way, as well as a new flower that's coming from this leaf. So yeah, pretty happy with the experiment. That is, like I say, still my preferred way of growing seedlings, and that is very much because I grow in semi-hydro. It just works for me. So that one was part of a seedling race, and the next one was part of a seed race. This one is a germinated seed of Anthurium Dorayaki silver crossed with a dark Forgetii. This one was an interesting one. There was someone in our Planty WhatsApp group that had the seedlings available, and they wanted to experiment in different conditions, different people growing it, and so that we as a community can just learn from each other. And he posted it on this group, and basically put the invite out to say that if people want it, they can let him know and come pick it up at his house. And I let him know that I wanted one of those, and I went to go and pick it up at his house probably a day or two after that. So I decided to do the same type of experiment that I just mentioned on the Crystal Hope X Crystal, where I put them in perlite, put them in moss, and also the lacquer moss combination. Lo and behold, the lacquer moss combination won at the end. So this is what the plant currently looks like. The older leaves looks a little bit worse for wear, but it's just because of my recent move. But the new leaves look quite good. And as with all Forgetias, it is a prolific flowerer. So whenever there's a new leaf, you can expect a new flower as well. This one is still completely in the lacquer that I had back then. Of course, I upsized the pot, but it's still in lacquer and it's doing really, really well. The next one is Anthurium Warocqueanum crossed with Red Dark Phoenix. And this one was also an import. A little bit different to the import process that I explained earlier. This one was not a buying trip. The local South African seller that I bought it from got pictures from the seller in Indonesia, and they essentially sent it to us on a WhatsApp group, and you had to type sold if you wanted it. This process also takes a little bit longer for you to get the plant, because there's normally like a month-long window where you can order any plants or pre-order any plants, and the plants will come in about a month and a half after you've bought it. Then the local seller would then ship it to you. This one was quite interesting because on parents I decided to buy. As you can see, it was quite a little small seedling. Didn't really have any of the features that those two parents have, but I thought in the future it might have quite good characteristics, and I was 100% correct. This is what the plant currently looks like. How beautiful. I absolutely love the dark color of it. This is the very new leaf, and as you can see on my black top, you don't see much of a difference. So it is in real life really, really dark, and I love the limited veins that it has, but it is that bright red that you would expect from a Red Dark Phoenix. It does have some other leaves, but it is quite damaged because of the recent winter move. I don't really mind older leaves that looks a little bit damaged. They don't really bother me at all until one day where I just take out the scissors and just go plant by plant, cutting off all of the older leaves. That doesn't look very good anymore. This plant is flowering for the first time, and it just started, I think today or yesterday, with female stage. I really want to pollinate this plant. I think with these kind of beaches, I cannot keep it to myself. So there's a couple of options in the collection that I want to hybridize this one with. Seeing that this one is a little bit more elongated, I do want very different features for the pollen parent. That one I think I want a little bit more veins and also a little bit more of a rounder shape. So I think it's going to look quite interesting. So definitely some of the plants that I'm going to show you in this video is actually good contenders for a hybrid with this one. But yeah, this is one of my really favorite plants. I just love the dark leaves that it has, the elongated shape, the minimal veins, but when you look at those veins, it's this nice bright pink one. So yeah, really love this plant. Next up is the Anthurium Dorayaki. This is what the plant looked like back then. It looks a little bit bigger because of the camera angle, but I think it was probably about 10 centimeters maybe. This is what the plant looks like right now, and it has this beautiful new emergent on the way, and based on the bedding I can already see that it's going to be bigger than the last leaf it had. I actually really like this perfect circular leaf shape and this nice veining. I don't think it is a plant that I would want to breed with, even though I really like the features. I like the features for this plant, but I don't like it in hybrids. As you can see, we've had quite a size up in the last couple of months. But to be quite honest, this plant actually should have been a little bit bigger at this point in time. It actually went through quite a bit of root rot. I almost want to say it had root rot about twice. And warning, I'm going to give you a very controversial take of how I take care of root rot. So a lot of people tell you to uproot the plant, so take it out of the pot that it has, discard of the substrate that it is in, and cut off the dead roots or the rotten roots and spray a hydrogen peroxide solution on it. For plants that is in soil, I 100% agree with that type of approach. Or pond, or semi-hydro in this case. That is not what I do at all. I do not take my plant out of the pot. I do not change the substrate. I just leave the plant to do its thing. Because I know my plant so well, I notice root rot quite quickly. I don't really deal with pests, and I don't really deal with any fungal issues or anything like that. The only thing that I really deal with is root rot, and I actually deal with it quite often. And this is what I do pretty much all of the time. The most common indicator for me that I do have root rot on plants is when my plants is not growing. So I know, saying that I've had this plant for a very long time now, or for quite a couple of months, I know the growth rate of these plants. So I know that this plant in particular is supposed to give me a new leaf pretty much within a month of another leaf hardening. If I don't see that and it becomes a month and a half, then I know there's something wrong with this plant. And it simply just takes me to lift the plant up and see that there is root rot. The things that I do, I first make sure that I remove the reservoir from this plant. I do just lift the plant up from the planter. If there is root rot around the plant, which you can't see because I did clean up the pot very recently, then I would literally just scrape off the dead roots from the plant and I would put it back. I would remove all of the water that is in the reservoir and let the plant essentially dry out. I know my plants really well. I know when this plant needs water again, and this is probably about a couple of days, maybe about 4 to 5 days. So I would make sure that the substrate dries out completely in that 4 to 5 days. And I would do a finger test. You just take my finger and test the top of the substrate with the, I guess, softer side of my finger. Just put it on top like that, and I kind of feel that there is quite a bit of moisture still on the plant. Once the plant has dried out, so like I said, I know this plant dries out about 4 to 5 days. After those 4 to 5 days, I give it another couple of days, so probably about 2 to 3 days. I make sure the plant really dries out. By that time, I'm pretty sure the root rot is gone. I would then take the plant to my bathroom. I would give it a proper flush, and a lot of that rotted roots would then come out of the substrate once I give it that proper flush. Just with plain water, there's really nothing added to it. The next few weeks, I would then treat this plant as if it was in soil. So I wouldn't keep a reservoir. I would literally just, what I would call, lightly water the plant. I would make sure that the entire surface does get water during this time, but there is no reservoir. It's not like a flush where I flush a whole lot of water through it. So just enough water to make sure that the plant gets hydrated, or make sure that the substrate can absorb some of that water. So that's the nice thing about pond. It really is a substrate that promotes root growth. I constantly to make sure that at the base of the plant there is enough substrate for the plant to continuously grow some new roots. Even though I'm experiencing root rot at the bottom, at the top the roots will still continue to grow. So like I say, really controversial take on how people normally deal with root rot, but I guess that is the advantage of growing in a semi-hydro, especially in my case, pond. So I hope you enjoyed that kind of conversation. I'm sure this method of dealing with root rot is probably going to spark a bit of conversation. So if you do have some comments, some questions, please put it in the comment section and I'll try to get to it as soon as I can. But yeah, that is how I deal with root rot in my preferred substrate, which is pond. And this is the Dorayaki. And next couple of plants is plants that I got in May 2024. So at this point in time, I've had it for about a year and about 4 months. The first one of this group I'm going to show you is the Anthurium CrystalMag. So that is a Crystallinum crossed with a Magnificum. This is what the plant looked like back then, and this is what the plant looks like right now. This is really such a stunning plant. It has a new leaf on the way, quite large, still quite floppy, so it has some hardening off to do. But I absolutely love this bright red color, and a couple of days ago the color was a little bit more intense and the vein color was also a little bit more intense. So this plant went through quite a little bit of what I call the awkward teenage stage. So for a couple of months, as the plant was growing up from the little seedling that you just saw, it didn't look like much, and honestly I didn't pay it a lot of attention at the time. I just took care of it, did pretty much the bare minimum, but I didn't really enjoy the plant as much as I do right now. I think about the 8th-month stage, this plant just went through a complete glow up. The leaves sized up dramatically, and it's the first time that I saw the real intense red emergence with the hot pink veins. It was absolutely beautiful. From that time onwards, I cannot wait for this plant to grow new leaves, and it's really quite a prolific grower. As soon as the one leaf hardens off, another one starts, so it's a constant enjoyment that this plant brings me. So as you can see, the emergent is quite a deep red. Now it looks quite maroon. On the camera it looks quite much darker than what it looks like in person. The older leaves harden off to a very dark green color, and I absolutely love it. This one has quite a bit of damage, and if you didn't know, this is what cold damage looks like. So the plant couldn't develop properly, so it has kind of these ruffly edges. And it's actually quite interesting, when I showed this on the Anthurium South Africa group, someone said it looks so beautiful, and how do they get their plant to have these ruffles? I thought it was quite interesting. It's the first time that the plant is flowering, and it currently has 2 flowers. This one is the oldest one, and it's just finishing up the female stage. This one hasn't opened yet. I actually didn't have much breeding plans for this one until the beginning of this week. Another really good Anthurium grower showed a KOS crossed with red crystal, and it actually looked very much like Clarinovium, and I am in my Clarinovium era. Anything that looks like Clarinovium is my absolute favorite. That plant got me thinking that perhaps I should cross this plant with the next one that we're about to see, which is the KOS hybrid. That one also has a flower, and by the time that this one is in the male stage and it's producing pollen, that one should be in its female stage and producing stigmatic fluid. So it should be quite an easy pollination, I hope. But yeah, didn't really have any plans, because I thought, especially with those 2 plants, there's actually quite a lot of old Hurk HURC plants available, and none of them, don't get me wrong, they are beautiful, but none of them really caught my eye to say that this is something that I really wanted to do. This is of course not a red crystal, but I actually love these features, and I think on that plant it's gonna look quite interesting. I'm really excited about that. As mentioned, the next plant we're going to be looking at is the King of Spades hybrid. So this is what the plant looked like back in May 24. At the time I actually thought that I was buying a pure KOS, but I think about 2 months ago I posted a picture on our Anthurium Addicts WhatsApp group, and the seller immediately reached out to me and said to me, hey, I think that your plant looks more like a hybrid. It looks very much like a KOS, but there's some features that just doesn't look like the plant that I have. I actually really appreciated that conversation, and from that day onwards, of course, I called it a KOS hybrid. Don't know what it was hybridized with, but it doesn't matter. The plant is still quite beautiful. The seller also offered to give me a seedling, once ready, of a pure KOS. I'm really excited to see how that one would grow in my conditions. But without further ado, this is what she looks like at the moment. How beautiful. I am so in love with this leaf. The last leaf that I gave you was actually quite large. So when this one popped out, I was super surprised with the sheer size of it. So this plant started flowering a couple of months ago. And I think the second inflow I managed to pollinate, I think that was in July. And I pollinated with a crystal black pollen. And unfortunately it was unsuccessful and I had to cut off that flower earlier this week. But I still really love this plant. There's another flower on this plant at the moment. Like I said in the previous one, it looks like this one is going to go into the female stage, so have stigmatic fluid. At the same time, a CrystalMag is going to have pollen. So let's see what happens. And yeah, really love this beautiful big leaf. The next plant we're going to be looking at is the Anthurium CrystalMag crossed with Metallicum. This is what she looked like back in May 2024, and this is what it looks like 16 months later. It actually grew quite nicely from that little seedling that we just saw. So this plant I also had in my grow tent for a really long time, and for some other reason it just didn't size up at all. I got so tired of it, kicked it out, put it into ambient, and lo and behold, it enjoyed that conditions much more. It immediately started putting out a whole lot of beautiful bigger leaves in ambient, and currently it's putting out this beautiful leaf as well as its first inflow. There's actually two on here at the moment. I do have some plans to hybridize this one. One of them is the option to hybridize it with the Sherman crossed with Red Rock Phoenix. So that I think should be quite an interesting looking hybrid. Yeah, so this is Anthurium CrystalMag crossed with Metallicum. The very last plant we are going to be looking at is Anthurium Forgetii crossed with Ace of Spades. And as you can see, when I got it, she was just a little seedling. And here she is right now. She looks a little bit worse for wear, but she really suffered quite a bit in the winter move. So this leaf is a little bit smaller than the last leaf, and it looks a little bit more darker. It is quite underdeveloped, unfortunately. It came out as it was about to move, and that winter movement, it really didn't do too well for this plant. But I think it's recovering now. It put out its first two inflows, so this one is just about done. It is dying off. I actually took pollen off of this one, and surprisingly for the first inflow, it actually produced quite a lot of pollen. I was really surprised about that one. And then we have the second one, which looks a little bit bigger, and it just finished up the female stage, so it's in the male stage now and producing some pollen. So I'll take those ones as well. I don't have any specific breeding plans with this plant, seeing that it kind of looks like a lot of the plants that we see with the velvety leaves and the similar veining structures to a lot of plants that you see. So I don't have specific breeding plans, but I will collect the pollen just to see. Maybe there is a different plant that really catches my eye that I think this one would look really beautiful with. So like I say, my breeding plan is not just to breed for the sake of breeding, just because my plant is in a female stage and in a male stage, just end up breeding the plants. I really want to look at nice characteristics. That is one of the key things that I want to bring to the South African Anthurium community, is really to have those unique hybrids in the future. So this plant, actually when it was quite younger, it was very exciting. I really loved this plant at that time, and it had such beautiful fillet textured leaves, but as it grew up, it grew out of that, unfortunately. This plant actually also popped already. I don't know if you would be able to see, in between there's a little bit smaller leaves, so this one is part of the pup. At some point I will separate them, but for now they're quite nice. I like them quite bushy. Probably in the next couple of weeks I will remove it, because I do have plans to sell some of my duplicates. I do have to probably take it out and pot it up separately and let it grow and let it give some joy to someone else in the community. So that is that from our Anthurium Forgetii cross Ace of Spades. So that is the 10 plants that I wanted to show you today. Surprisingly, as I was preparing for this video and as this video went along, there's about 3 things that I think I probably would need to expand on a lot more in their own separate videos. Number 1, how I deal with root rot in my pond. And a lot of it has to do with how well I know my plant, how well I know my substrate. That's why I can take a little bit more of a relaxed approach when it comes to dealing with root rot. But I'll delve into that a lot more. And if you have questions for me, put it in the comment section so that I can also deal with those questions. The second thing that was quite interesting was also, how do you know? How can you tell whether your new leaf is going to be bigger than the last one? So that one would probably not warrant an entire video, but I think a short would actually be quite nice, where I can practically show you on my plants how that looks like. I do have a monster of a plant currently growing. The leaf is still growing. She's about 70 centimeters high and probably about 45 to 50 centimeters in width. So I think maybe that one is a good one to just demonstrate practically on. And then the last thing that I hope you took from it is how I'm transitioning from just an Anthurium collector, where I just collected plants last year. A lot of them, like you saw, were seedlings, and how I managed to grow them in the last year and a half. And now they are flowering. And the breeding aspect is something that's currently really exciting me. I do want to bring the South African plant community, especially the Anthurium one, some beautiful plants, some plants that we haven't seen before, some plants that we can be proud of, that is locally bred in South Africa. I'm really excited about that project and how that is going to unfold in the next couple of months. I do have a plan on how that breeding is going to work. Hopefully in the next couple of months that plan does come to fruition and you will see pretty much every month a new hybrid coming from me. So that is really exciting. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed shooting it. Again, if you have any questions for me, leave it in the comments. If you see any plants that is flowering that you think would make a good hybrid with a different plant that you saw in my collection, please let me know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know on Instagram. Before I go, I do want to give a special mention to the Anthurium Addicts WhatsApp group. You guys have been absolutely amazing in supporting me this week with this new YouTube channel venture that I'm going into. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this week's video. This was not the planned video at all. It was going to be totally something completely different to Anthuriums. Because I experienced all of the love from you guys this week, I decided I have to make my first Planty YouTube video about Anthurium. I hope that you guys will continue to support me. Thank you so much. And that is that for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoyed making this one for you. And I hope that you have a lekker rest of your day. Bye bye.